So this is a video about finding simple interest. So first we're just going to define what some of the words we're going to be using are. So the first one says blank is the amount paid or earned for the use of money. And that's just what interest is. And specifically in this stop we're going to be talking about simple interest. And like the name says, it's the simplest kind of interest to find. So anytime you borrow money before you pay it back, the charge for borrowing the money is called interest. Or sometimes when you deposit money in a bank and the bank pays you for leaving that money there, that's called interest as well. So different types of interest, but you can use the same formula to find both. All right, and then the amount of money that you borrow, like so say you borrow money to buy a car, your loan, that would be called the principal. So it's the amount that's being borrowed. And then it can also be the amount you deposit in the bank. So if you put $500 in your savings account, then that might be your principal. All right, and we're going to use the principal to find the interest. So the interest is always based on the principal, so the amount you borrow or the amount you deposit in the bank. And there's a real easy formula for finding interest. I equals PRT, and when you have letters written together like that, remember that just means multiply. So you're going to be multiplying P times R times T. I stands for the interest, so we're going to be calculating the interest by multiplying. P stands for the principal, so again, that's the money you put in the bank or the money you borrow. That amount times the times R, which is the rate or the interest rate, and that is usually written as a percent. But you're going to change it to a decimal when you use it in the formula. All right, and then the last letter is T, and T stands for the time. So it's the time that you borrow the money or the time that the money is in the bank. And time is always expressed in years. So there may be some times when they don't give you the time in years. They might give you it in months, and then you'll have to change it into years. All right, so basically you're going to find these three things, the principal, the rate, and the time, and you're going to use that to find the interest. All right, so let's look at the first example. Arnold puts $580 into a savings account. The account pays 3% simple interest. How much interest did he earn after 5 years? All right, so we want to determine if we're going to use this formula, then we need to know the principal, the rate, and the time. So we're looking for the amount he borrowed or the amount he deposited. So it says he put $580 into his savings account, so that would be his principal, $580. All right, we also need to know his rate. So that would be this percent right here. 3% is the interest rate. And so it's expressed as a percent, but to use it in the formula, I need to change it to a decimal. So remember to change a percent to a decimal and move it over 2 places. I'm going to end up adding a 0 to make that 0.03. And then time is the time in years that the amount was put in the bank. So he left, it looks like he left his money for 5 years. Okay, and it's important to see that word years because we want time to be in years. So in this case, I don't need to change anything. T is 5. All right, the formula tells me to multiply P times R times T. Right, so my principal is 580. Oops. My rate is 0.03, and my time is 5. All right, so I can multiply these all together. I can do that in any order. Remember, the associative property says I can multiply these two first, and then this one, or I can multiply these two first, and then the first one. So these look like easy numbers to multiply, so I'm going to start by doing 0.03. times 5. If you do it in order, that's fine too. You'll get the same answer. 5 times 3 is 15. Carry your 1. 5 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. There are 2 decimal places in my problem, so I'm going to have 2 decimal places in my answer. So that's these first two, and then I still need to multiply times 580. So I'm going to do that next. 580 times 0.15. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 8 is 40. Carry the 4. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 4 is 29. I start my second row with a 0. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 5 is 5. When I add these up, I get 0, 0. 9 plus 8 is 17. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 5 is 8. I'm gonna look for my decimal. I have 2 decimal places here, so I'm gonna have 2 decimal places here. All right, so since I multiplied this times 580, then this is equal to the interest, or I, which is $87. All right, so the question was, how much interest did he earn after 5 years? The answer is he earned $87. All right, so if this is my money that I put into the bank, I would put in $580. Then after the 5 years, I'm gonna have that amount plus this additional $87 in interest. Okay. All right. So let's see. Jamie borrowed $720 to buy a television. His loan has a 2.5% simple interest. How much interest does he owe after 3 years? Again, I'm going to start by finding the principal, the rate, and the time. Now you can also use this formula, I equals P R T, to solve for one of the other letters. So if I told you the interest, the principal, and the rate, I wanted to know the time, I could also substitute in those amounts and then solve for T, which we'll do more later this year, but just so you know, this formula doesn't just have to be used to find the interest, but that's all we're going to be using it for in this stop for now. Okay, so P is the principal. That's the amount you borrow or the amount you deposit in the bank. So since it says Jamie borrowed $720, that's going to be my principal. R stands for the rate, so I'm looking for an interest rate. And that would be this right here, 2.5%. So it's given as a percent, but I want to make sure I change it to a decimal. So I move my decimal over 2 places. That becomes 0.025. That was kind of a bad drawing. Okay, and then T is the time in years. So he borrows the money for 3 years, so T is going to be 3. All right, so then the last step is to put this all into the formula. So the interest is going to be found by multiplying the principal, which is 720, times the rate, which is 0.025, times the time, which is 3. All right, again, I can multiply these in any order. So I'm going to choose the simplest 2 to multiply, which to me looks like these last 2. So 0.025 times 3. 3 times 5 is 15, carry your 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. 3 times 0 is 0. There are 1, 2, 3 decimal places here, so 1, 2, 3 decimal places here. So taking care of these 2, I still need to multiply times 720. So now I'm going to take this number here and multiply by 720. So times 0.075. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 2 is 10. Carry your 1. 5 times 7 is 35, plus 1 is 36. Start with a 0. 7 times 0 is 0. 7 times 2 is 14. Carry your 1. 7 times 7 is 49, plus 1 is 50. Add those up. And I get this number here, 54000, but I have 1, 2, 3 decimal places here, so I need to make sure, put my decimal here, 54.000. I didn't multiply times that last 0 because that would just give me a row of zeros. You can, but it's not going to change your answer. All right, and then I want to express this interest as an amount of money. All right, so I don't need this last 0 because I don't have 3 decimal places when I'm talking about money. So I'm just going to, normally I would round that, but since they're all zeros, I'm just going to drop that last 0, and the interest is $54. Okay, so what they're talking about is Jamie borrows $720 for his television. After 3 years, he owes the $720 plus the $54 that he's being charged for borrowing the money. So he actually ends up paying more for the television than the $720 because he had to borrow the money. All right, and the last one, Marcus' savings account earns 4% interest. He has $1,200 in his account. How much interest did he earn after 3 months? So we're going to use our formula. Interest is equal to principal times rate times time. So I need to find all of those first. The principal is the amount borrowed or the amount in his account. That would be the $1,200. The rate is the interest rate. Sorry, which is 4%. So change your percent to a decimal, move it over 2 places, so that becomes 0.04. And then time is how long it's in the bank in years. Okay, so in this case, it's not 3 years, it's 3 months. So that means we have to do something a little different. So I can't use the number 3 because that would mean 3 years. 3 months is less than a year. So what I want to do is write this as a fraction, all right? So instead of a whole year, this is 3 months out of, well, what's a year? 12 months. So I'm going to use the fraction 3/12 to show it's not a whole year, it's 3 out of 12. All right, then this is going to be hard to multiply by because I'm going to end up multiplying all these. I could do it if I wanted to, but if I don't want to work with a fraction, I'm going to change it to a decimal. So I'm going to use Tybo, top in, bottom out, change it to a decimal. 12 won't go into 3, so I'm going to add my decimal, bring it up, add a 0. 12 will go into 30 now 2 times. Subtract 24. That gives me 6, bring down another 0. 12 will go into 60 5 times, just 60, and I can stop. All right, so I'm going to change my time into 0.25. All right, so then now I can use this formula. The interest is going to equal the principal, just 1,200, times the rate, which is 0.04, times the time, which is 0.25. All right, so I can multiply in any order. I'm going to just choose the first, the 2 that I think are simplest to multiply. This time, this first 2 don't seem that hard to multiply, so I'm going to start with them. Again, it really doesn't matter what order you choose, how you want to do it. You should get the same answer. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 1 is 4. Right? And then I could multiply by 0, but that's just going to give me all zeros, so I'm going to skip that part. I do need to look at where my decimal goes. There are 2 decimals here, so 1, 2, 2 decimals here. All right, so taking care of these first 2, I still need to multiply times 0.25. When I multiply by 0.25, I'm going to drop these last 2 zeros. I don't really need them. I can multiply without them. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 4 is 24. Start with a 0. 2 times 8 is 16. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Add these up, 0, 10, and 12. There are 2 decimals here, so 2 decimals here. All right, so my final answer is going to be $12. All right, so if I just kind of interpret this again, Marcos had $1,200 in his account. After 3 months, so not a full year, he earns $12 in interest. So that would be, because this is his money, he's being paid for leaving it in the bank. So he's going to have his $1,200 at the end of 3 months, plus an additional $12 that he earned in interest. All right, so interest can be a good or bad thing. So in this case, it's a good thing because Marcus is getting money for leaving his money in the bank. But like say in number 2, interest is not so friendly, right? Because it's making the cost of the television higher, because to borrow the money, you have to pay interest because it's like they're charging you for loaning you the money. Okay, all right, simple interest. Just remember the formula. I equals principal times rate times time. Principal is what you borrow or deposit. Rate is your interest rate. Just change your percent to a decimal first. And then T, the tricky part here is just making sure the time is in years. If it's not in years, then you're going to do what we did on this last problem here and just write it as a fraction and change it to a decimal and then use that for time. All right, see you soon.